Eric's good. Yeah, if you need it, let me know. Eric did this one.
No, Kim just.
This one's in the packet, you're right.
I gave it to Steve.
Yep,
I kept it.
it was in the packet. If we get them done in
Okay, I
time,
call
we
to
put
order
them.
our special city council workshop meeting of July 6th. Second item on the agenda, discussion and possible action on 3 items: growth-related traffic issues, Oklahoma Public Safety Protection District, and EMS billing. Leroy?
Eric Carlo is gonna make this presentation.
All right, Eric. Come on, chief. Do it.
Figure out the clicker. Leroy gave me some tips on here.
It's a start.
As you guys know, we'll start off with the traffic-related issues, and we made this basically the same presentation to both our state and federal congressional and Senate delegation a couple of months ago, kind of on the heels of several bad accidents here in our immediate area. And the subsequent growth we've got going on has really contributed to a lot of this. The first area we're going to talk about is the South Division corridor. Sure, everybody in TV land can hear me, I guess. You guys probably travel this every day. You know how bad the traffic is. Don, I know you've got firsthand knowledge just from towing cars down there. We have a ton of vehicle crashes, basically in the stretch from about Airport Road down past Prairie Grove, and a lot of it's due to inattentive driving, no left-hand turn lanes for all the businesses and the housing additions and the apartment complexes down there, and it's only continue to get worse and will get worse with the soon-to-be open Meridian Tech Center campus, and then also, as you can see in red, the new phase of Mission Hills that was recently approved. I believe 300 roughly total houses. Leroy, is that right?
307.
307? Okay. Any of you guys that have tried to pull out of Mission Hills or the Savannah House, Pleasant Hills Apartments across the street, you know how hard it is to get out on a division right there. There's a little bit of a sight distance issue with the hill coming out of there, being able to see the southbound traffic. And then the second picture there, you can see the Meridian campus under construction. You guys can just imagine what kind of traffic load that's going to put both left and right-hand turns into that campus location. So we did discuss this with our Division 4 engineer with ODOT, kind of put it on his radar. Some of this he knew about, some of it he didn't know about, but definitely brought it to his attention. Sorry. Some of the potential fixes are signal lights, which have been talked about for several years down there. Tenny, I don't know if you remember, we lowered the speed limit 9 years ago, maybe. Roughly, yeah. Dropped it from 55 to 45 down there. It hasn't really helped. Still one of our hot spots for crashes in town. Going back on the records for 2020, we only found 3. Seems like there were several more than that. Chris, you were probably out there for 90% of them too. So they're not always terrible, but any crash isn't good. Some of the other solutions are to lower that hill and correct the sight distance issues, but you're talking quite a bit of money there to come in and lower that hill with the dirt removal and the repaving and stuff. And then a center turn lane throughout that whole corridor would help a lot. But then again, you're talking about a lot of dirt work, widening the roadway, acquiring right-of-way, so on and so forth. And with that being a state highway, a lot of that would fall on ODOT for financial responsibility. And currently, it's not really on their radar for their 8-year construction plan. Working with both ODOT and our House of Representative and Senate delegation, we can probably try to get that pushed to get on their radar sometime. But as anything with state roads, you know, it doesn't work fast.
So just because I don't think you know this, and a lot of people don't know this, but through the county and Ideal Homes, we've kind of come up with an agreement in principle to pave Davis to industrial.
Yeah, I'd heard
So that's
rumor
gonna be a
that
big deal.
that'll be huge. maybe if you can convince people to go to industrial and come back and catch the light, that'll help. But unfortunately, drivers tend to take the shortest route,
Yeah.
and old habits are hard to break, especially
Yeah.
for those that already live in the current phase. So
Mhm.
that will definitely be a helping factor, though.
So Chief, just before you leave that, and all of these presentations that you've got involve ODOT.
They really
involve
do,
state highways.
yes.
And so if it isn't on their radar, the action that this group can take is minimal.
It is, a resolution supporting any kind of improvements definitely helps, and officially files a complaint, if you will, or files a letter of support from this group to the state. But like I said, we just brought a lot of this to their division engineer's attention less than 2 months ago. So it could be on their radar.
You know, one of the other things that always amazes me when I sit on some ACOG boards, and it's the number of accidents is a significantly driving force.
It is.
On all of these, which is unfortunate that you've got to have things go wrong before they're corrected. But I guess that's just their reality. That's their metric for where the hot spots are.
Yeah, it really is an unfortunate reality with, it seems like anything dealing with a road change, a lot of times it takes a death or serious injury or multiple to get their attention enough to make a change. One of the other areas we'll talk about here in the next few slides, ODOT actually took immediate action and has future plans that immediately went on their radar after fatality accidents, like you said. So this obviously is going to be a big ticket item, but unfortunately with the growth down there, we're probably going to continue to see increasing number of crashes. And Chief Swager, if you have anything on the traffic and crash stuff, feel free to.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, it's just, I can put my motorcycle guy out there, and the people, you can lower the speed limit all you want, they'll sit out there all day long and write tickets. They don't drive it, and then the people trying to get out of Mission Hills can't, and then we have a collision. It just repeats itself.
The next one is probably, in Chief and I's discussions, this probably is the #1 area for crashes here in town, and that's the Pine and Noble intersection. One of the same problems we have on the south end of Division, same problem here, no dedicated left turn lanes, and you've got a hill west of the intersection that causes a sight distance issue as you're going eastbound. So potential solutions, once again, add left turn lanes, which would cause you to widen the intersection. One potential solution that the ODOT engineer threw out there, he said he would have to run the numbers to see if it was even feasible, but it was to reduce the 4-lane down to 2-lane, which would give them the space to add a center turn lane in both directions. He would have to look at the traffic counts to see if one through lane in each direction would be adequate for the amount of traffic coming through there. And of course, just like South Division, lowering that hill, which probably isn't too feasible considering the number of homes and businesses right there west of the intersection, the limited amount of right-of-way they've got to work with. That left picture is a little bit hard to tell until you've sat down in a lower vehicle running east on Noble. It's hard to truly see how bad of a sight distance issue there really is coming up to that light. We deal with it every day, just about running emergency calls going west. You never know what you're going to see when you pop up over that hill. If somebody's going to be stopped to turn north on Pine, and if they see you coming, and then us having to go into oncoming traffic to proceed through that intersection can become a little bit of a problem. And I don't know, I know in the last handful of years, the stoplight pole's been taken out at least once.
Several times, and back to kind of the mayor's question there about the traffic wrecks and accidents. Once ODOT looks at these numbers that we're giving them, they then take it back and they'll only pull out your turning accidents. Their ratio is turning traffic only too, so it'll even drop it even more. You may have lane change numbers in there and an accident, but they'll drop it to only turning traffic only too. So probably another reason that we haven't seen as much on their radar as well.
But just bringing their engineer in a few months ago and having that meeting with him he was very attentive, and it opened his eyes to a lot of the issues that he doesn't always hear about because they're in town and not out on the rural highways. So, the next one is Academy and Noble, another hot spot. 6 collisions in 20, one of those being fatal last summer. Most of our crashes out there, like Tenny said, they're due to turning. There's a lot of cross traffic there with Logan County Asphalt, Form Technologies, our Public Works shop. I say newly opened, I guess it's been there a few years ago, but the West Side Travel Stop, and then of course the hospital and all the housing and Job Corps south of there. So there's quite a bit of turning traffic at that intersection. They do have a little bit of more room to work with right-of-way wise out there. Unfortunately, there's some drop-offs to the off to the edge of the roadway, which may require some costly dirt work. But once again, signal lights and left-hand turn lanes would greatly help out with some of the issues out there. This is one that ODOT is looking at, along with the next one we'll cover.
Before you leave that,
Yeah.
what about the potential impact of the future youth sports complex?
Once again, that would, just like Meridian
It's right there.
and Mission Hills, will contribute to increases on South Division. Our sports complex would increase not only on Academy, but our planned entrance, which is further west of Commerce Drive, a little bit outside of this picture to the west.
And one of the nice things in visiting with the district engineer, we could make him aware, and we showed him the plans for the sports complex, the plans for the industrial park. So he's aware of some of the future projects, so when he's thinking 8 years out, he knows what's on our plans to take that into consideration.
And one of the problems we'll kind of run into where the planned entrance to the sports complex is that is past where the 55-mile-an-hour zone starts. So it may be something on this body's behalf, much like we did when we got the speed limit lowered, both out there and on South Division, is try to encourage ODOT to lower the speed limit a little further west. As Tenny said and Chief said, they don't go the speed limit, but if it saves one crash from happening, that's a plus. Just street level view of that intersection. Most of you have traveled that plenty of times. Picture on the right was from the fatality crash that occurred last summer. Larger commercial vehicle. I think he was traveling pretty close to the speed limit when it happened, but unfortunately, car pulled right out in front of him and caused that accident. So the other one, even though it's just outside of our city limits, it's close enough to home that it's a concern to us. Broadway and 33. If any of you have ever traveled Broadway, you know it's a major cut-through route for people trying to get around town coming out of Edmond or off Waterloo. So there's a lot of truck traffic, a lot of passenger vehicle traffic. Fatal collisions just in the last few years. We had a double fatality back in February out there, and then another double fatality in, well, almost exactly 3 years ago right now, which was a couple of teenage girls from Edmond. Blew through the stop sign, pulled out in front of a pusher RV, T-bone accident. The one we had back in February was another failure to stop at the stop sign, vehicle occupied by 2 individuals that lived not too far south of that intersection, so one would think that they were familiar that stop sign was coming up, but they drove right under the rear axles of a eastbound tanker tractor trailer, and vehicle caught fire and the 2 individuals burned to death. ODOT has this on their radar quite a bit. The division engineer, right before we had the meeting with him a couple months ago, had been out there and personally sat and watched the amount of traffic coming off Broadway, and he said he was truly amazed. He had no idea the number of cars coming off Broadway out there. So that quickly got his attention. If you haven't been out there in the last couple of weeks, they just put centerline rumble strips from roughly Commerce Drive all the way out to Highway 74. 2 of our fatality collisions we've had just this year alone were due to crossover centerline accidents. One of those was possibly alcohol related. The other one was just an inattentive driving left of center incident. But one would hope that the centerline rumble strip would have possibly prevented both of those from happening. The engineer did mention that they do have the beginning works of plans to add center turn lanes out there and possibly even right-hand turn lanes for eastbound traffic going south on Broadway. They do have a significant drop-off to the north side of the road, but he believed they may be able to redesign that curve and use the south side of the roadway where there's not so much of a drop-off and wouldn't require so much dirt work. He did agree that we may have to look at a traffic signal out there in the next handful of years as well. If they do so, they may come to the city requesting us to annex that intersection to take over maintenance of the traffic signal, much like we did out at I-35 in Noble a few years ago, and may have to look at it Midwest 105 and 33 here in the next few years as well. Just a view of a couple of the crashes we've had out there. This was the tanker trailer incident I mentioned back in February. This was the 2 teenagers from Edmond a few years ago. You wouldn't think with the visibility at that intersection that it would be that bad. I don't know if the little hill before you get to the intersection coming up Broadway catches that many people off guard. They did install flashing LED stop signs 3 weeks after we had the meeting with ODOT, so that was a pretty quick move, and then they did the rumble strips a few weeks ago. There were rumble strips on Broadway approaching the intersection. For the last few years, Logan County repaved that roadway, I believe, last year and covered those up, but I believe ODOT's working to put those back in just to give a little bit more advance warning for folks going north on Broadway. I mentioned just a minute ago the signalization at 33105 Midwest. ODOT has plans for federal year 2026, which would be October of 2025 into September of 2026, to widen 105 from Highway 33 out past Anderson, I believe. They'll add shoulders and widen the roadway, cut down some of the hills, and cut out some of the sight distance issues. As part of that project, they're going to reconfigure this intersection where Midwest 105 and 33 all meet there at the curve. They've already noticed quite a bit of truck traffic due to the Love's truck stop, and then with all the growth out east on 105 with the housing conditions, there's quite a bit more traffic on 105 now than there used to be. They do have a signal planned for this intersection as part of the project, and once again, they may ask us to annex a little bit further out to that intersection to assume maintenance of that traffic signal. I don't know if Logan County would be willing to do it, so we'll just have to wait and see. That's still about 5 years out. I mean, he said the design is not finalized on that either, so things could change. We did inform him about the industrial park and some of the potential growth issues we had out there, just to have it on his mind, as Leroy said, so they can take that into account when they finalize the design of this. Next subject we'll cover is the Oklahoma Public Safety Protection District Act. This was passed this last session in the legislature, signed into law by Governor Stitt. It'll have an effective date of this November 1. What it does is allow, say, a municipality to create a public safety protection district within their city limits and collect an ad valorem property tax not to exceed 5 mills. It's limited for fire, police, and/or emergency medical service use only. Much like a school bond, it does require a supermajority vote of 60% or greater to pass. It exempts all agriculture and industrial properties, and based on latest estimates from the assessor's office, it would generate about $247,000 a year for us if we were to pass that at a 5 mil rate.
If we could discuss that for a minute. Of course, the purpose of all these PowerPoint presentations as we go through this is in preparation of our planning retreat coming up. And at that planning retreat, we'll be going back through these things in more of a summary style to talk about, you know, do we want to explore raising the motel tax for future maintenance of ball fields? We'll be talking about this. Do we want to pursue this? And one of the things to keep in mind is that $240,000 isn't just adding more toys and more things. If you remember, when the capital improvement sales tax was passed, immediately a big chunk of that was spent catching up with purchasing of fire trucks and police cars. If you had a fund like this, it would shift that burden to this fund. If you spent $120,000 each year on police vehicles and then took $120,000 roughly each year to save up, so every 5 years you could replace a fire truck or an ambulance, you would have a more systematic process to keep our rolling stock in those two departments more current. You're still going to have to replace them at some point. They wear out. But then that would free up money in the future when there is a sales tax for capital improvements to go more towards the community projects the community expects and take some of this burden off of that fund. Just some thought to consider when we discuss it at the retreat.
What does 5 mil do to the average homeowner, do we know?
Somebody looked at it and said that their property tax would go up about $50 a year.
It's 55 per 100,000.
Yep. It's pretty nominal in the grand scheme.
But only on people in the city limits?
Correct. We cannot do anything that would create property taxes outside city limits. So it'd just be on property inside the city, would not include any agricultural land or industrial land.
And this was a huge win. This has been something that the fire community, the law enforcement community, OML has been battling out for several years, probably close to 10 years now, trying to get this passed within the legislature. The Farm Bureau, who you guys probably know, they swing a huge axe when it comes to the legislature. Going to 5 mil limitation and exempting the ag and industrial properties was kind of the give and take that they were able to get OML or Farm Bureau to be okay with this. They naturally fight anything that's going to impact their policyholders and members. So to get this passed was a huge win for a lot of parties. So 5 mils isn't a lot, but that's $250,000 that we don't have today if we were able to get it passed. And as Leroy mentioned, it's a good, property tax is such a stable form of revenue versus the volatility of sales tax and riding that, the ebb and flow up and down of that. So some of the critical equipment that you have to have, having a stable revenue source for that is a nice thing to look at.
I've got a comment on it. What are we getting off of the people outside of the city limits as far as the meals for fire emergency?
We get zero for fire unless they're members of our rural fire subscription program, which doesn't generate maybe 10 or 12 grand a year.
That you get outside of the city limits?
Yeah, but we do participate in the countywide quarter-cent sales tax for fire departments. We get an equal share of that.
And that is?
Based on current, we're getting about 55,000 a year, maybe 60. It's down quite a bit compared to what it was 4 or 5 years ago when the wheel business was up.
And then for ambulance, of course, there's the EMS district, and there's the 3 mil property tax that covers the school district. And then, of course, we have 2 different districts. But the majority of that pays for operation costs, doesn't pay for equipment.
We have none of that is set aside by what we bring in as an equipment fund.
Now,
The district keeps 10%. Their contract with us is for 90%. The Guthrie School District EMS, we get 90% of what they bring in under contract. They hold back the other 10 for their own insurance, auditing fees, so on and so forth. But they are kind enough that every so many years, as they've saved up some of that and haven't used it all, they are willing to chip in and help us purchase ambulances. And you guys that were on the council, remember when we bought these 2 year and a half, I guess almost 2 years ago now, they're chipping in $3,500 a month, I believe, towards the part of their share of those ambulances. And then we put in a little bit of surplus unexpended funds, and then we have the USDA grant for a chunk of that as well. So None of that is currently set back for equipment replacement. Like Leroy said, it all goes into the operations. So, and that's,
And that's why I think if we decide, if the council decides to pursue this, I think we earmark it specifically for equipment.
Well, but you're still gonna have to do a pretty big campaign to get 60% supermajority to vote it.
We were hoping
I
that,
think you'll have difficulty if you're asking citizens to pay more in mills than you're asking those of the county to pay.
we don't have the ability to, that's the problem. There is no
Well,
ability to.
you can't ask for more from
No.
those counties. but you can
3%
ask
is the
for less
cap.
than 5 mills from the city, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, there is no, unless Oak Cliff, Deer Creek, Woodcrest, they are fire protection district, rural fire protection districts, and they can pass a millage up to 10 mills solely for fire protection, and I believe they're all at 7 right now. But we have no ability to enact a ad valorem tax on our fire
but
district. outside
your,
of the city.
your comment is well taken, and it's a good comment, but it is what it is, and if a council sees that it is a wise thing to do, they have a dedicated source to replace equipment on a more systematic basis. First decision is going to be at the city council level. Then the second decision will be made by the voters, and we will just have to present our case
Yeah.
that how it could benefit the service to them by having a systematic fund to replace those. And you know, Councilman Bothroyd's going to help us campaign, so.
There you go. I'm used to beating doors.
There you go. So,
Channel.
you know, it's not, it's not a given, but it will be up to the citizens to decide if this is an appropriate thing to give between $50 and $100 more a year so that we have a more systematic revenue stream to replace some of the equipment it takes to run police and fire and EMS.
And at the end of the day, Councilman Case, the majority of our calls are still in city limits.
But your
Fire,
point's well
ambulance,
taken.
And police, of course, all theirs are, if they're helping the county out. So, I mean, it's still going to benefit the majority here within the city limits.
Well, we just have to put some dog and pony shows on like the and educate people.
We,
about what it
we will want to do an awareness campaign to inform them of the benefits of this and how it can benefit them and what it would cost them. And hopefully we can give them enough insight, they can make an informed decision. And then, of course, it'll just be up to the voters to make the decision. But first decision will be by the city council. Do they want to put it to vote?
See, and that 247,000, that's probably based on the current residents, right?
It is, and we'll have
And we're
quite a
getting
bit
ready
of
to have
growth.
another 300 here and another 300 and some, up
It,
Prairie
it
Grove.
should go up in the future.
Yeah.
Industrial properties would add to it, but, you know, like I said, you had to have a give and take to get what you could get within the legislature and get it passed. So there's always a chance it could be modified in the future if parties choose to try to do that.
But the way I see that we will, at our retreat, we will have one sheet dealing with revenue issues to talk about motel tax, this, the sanitation rates for trash service. And council at that time, at the retreat, will have a discussion and the council will tell us which one of these revenue sources they're supportive of us pursuing, which ones they want us to take off the table. So we look forward to you all giving us the guidance at that planning retreat on which ones you want us to pursue and which ones you want us to hold up on.
Any more questions on that one? The next and final thing that we've been trying to get this on the workshop schedule and get it to you guys. We were going to do it about a year ago, but we, in talking to the city attorney, we had one more year left with our current billing provider that handles our EMS billing. Our contract with them ends September 30 of this year, so we're finally able to get out from under them. Currently, what I threw up there is just a random sample I pulled of a Medicare or Medicaid patient's bill. Their name and information has, of course, been redacted. But if you look down in the right-hand corner, their original bill was $2,400, 26 cents, or excuse me, $2,426 and 39 cents. This was a transport here in the city limits to Integris Baptist down off Northwest Expressway. So these are the way we currently bill. We have a base rate. ALS stands for Advanced Life Support. The base rate is $855. We charge $15 per mile, loaded mile. The problem we've run into, and Councilman Channel brought this up when we were looking at audit results, I believe, last year, and it's the amount that we have to write off every year. And that debt stays on our books as uncollected charges. Medicare and Medicaid will not pay any of these itemized charges that you see down here. They'll pay the base rate and they'll pay their mileage, what they deem is their current mileage rate, which Congress passes. If you look down here in the right corner, we had a $2,400 and change bill. Payment from Medicaid, $527.
So the write-off $1,899.
We wrote off $1,900, and we have no choice. You can't balance bill Medicaid and Medicare patient unless they have secondary insurance, like something they go out and purchase. So that right there is just a random sample I pulled so you could see what we actually write off when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. Unfortunately, we're in a locale that a large number of our demographic is Medicare or Medicaid insured. You know, we have quite a bit of retired and elderly citizens in our jurisdiction. We also have a lot of lower income in our jurisdiction, which leads to serving Medicare and Medicaid patients. And the problem we've started to run into, and it seems to increase year by year, a lot of your private insurance carriers have gone to not paying itemized charges.
So what about your uninsured? How do you collect those? You just don't?
We bill them or send them to collections.
So when you go in and can you change your base rate?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about, that we're going to propose to do. But I wanted to give you guys an example of what we're at currently.
They'll only pay so much a mile, right?
Yes.
But your base rate can be whatever.
We could make our base rate $10,000 if we want.
If you cover all these other charges.
They're not gonna
This
pay
is
it.
all, Medicare pays, this is their base rate. It varies from $261 to $500, almost $600, depending on if it's a basic life support, advanced life support, and so on.
So they're only going to pay that.
They pay what their rates are. They pick the rate that they're going to pay. And the problem is, we've got the same problem starting to occur more and more with your private insurance carriers. Blue Cross Blue Shield, for instance, we had to join their network to get what we can get from them or get less being out of network, because they'll only pay what they pay. You can go after and balance bill what's left over, but I mean, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. You can take people to collections all day. If they don't have it, they don't have it. And honestly, from a moral standpoint, you got somebody that's down and hurt, possibly paralyzed or crippled for life, you can't get money. I mean, they've got thousands in medical bills, and you're just standing in line with these big, powerful hospitals trying to get your chunk of the change. So, but I wanted to show you guys an example of what we routinely are having to write off, what leads to that. I believe it was $4 million or so in
So how do some of these towns do their monthly billing on this, and EMS comes, you know, ambulances included and all that? How does that look?
So IMSA has a large subscription service. And the way they do theirs, you can privately join it, or the cities that they contract with, Edmond, Oklahoma City, Piedmont, well, not Piedmont anymore.
Village, the Village does it too.
The Village, Nichols Hills, Oklahoma City, and Edmond now, I think, are all that's left in their contracted area. It's a utility bill fee. And I believe it's $5, I think. $5 gets added to every utility bill automatically. And that money is their subsidy fee that those cities pay IMSA every year. It adds up.
Yeah, because not everybody's using the ambulance.
Exactly.
But
You
everybody's
can
paying the
opt
fee.
out, but you're automatically enrolled. But you have to actually physically go and opt out or fill out a form to opt out. They automatically opt you in, but you can opt out if you want. But the way that works, those cities pay that subsidy to the provider, in that case IMSA. They write off anything insurance doesn't cover. we're kind of already having to do that anyway, other than a little bit of private pay that we're getting. We do have the property tax, like Leroy mentioned, where we have the contracts with the 2 EMS districts, which helps us. IMSA doesn't have that, so we at least get some money there. There are cities out there that bill, and that's it, and they have to survive on that. Doesn't work very well, especially with the increasing number of uninsured or underinsured folks out there. And Medicare, Medicaid rates have not come anywhere close to keeping up with inflation. Councilman Case, you talked about our base rate. We are proposing, as part of this whole package, to adjust our billing structure. We haven't adjusted our base rates in quite a few years. Industry norms have gone away from the itemized billing that I talked about. Medicare, Medicaid will not pay the itemized, they'll pay the base rate. Same thing with a lot of your private carriers, and that's increasing every year. The industry norm has been to go to a higher base rate and not have any itemized billing. You'd have your base rate and your mileage. You wouldn't have every little thing you use, you wouldn't have a charge for that.
But why, if they're only gonna pay $260 to $600?
Because a lot of your private carriers, they'll pay your base rate.
Okay.
Unless you're in a network contract with them, like with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're in a network rate and we get, I think it's $800. United, some of the others out there, they'll pay your base rate, they just won't pay your itemized cost.
I see.
So the norm, and IMSA has done this for years, and it increased their revenues. Wausau went to this a few years ago, Broken Arrow went to this a few years ago. It's helped them out quite a bit because you don't have the little one-liner incidental costs that these insurance carriers aren't paying. But what we're proposing is a $1,300 base rate, basic life support or advanced life support. And these numbers are kind of mocked off what several other carriers or services are charging. We looked all over the Tulsa Metro, the Oklahoma City Metro, pulled a couple of the rural areas, and 13 is kind of a middle of the road number that we came up with. Our mileage rate would stay the same at $15, and then 2 other charges that we currently have: $175 an hour or $175 charge for what we call a treatment no transport. That's where we go out, say a diabetic patient, their blood sugar's down, and we go out, give them some medication, get their blood sugar back up, and they're fine at that point, and they don't want to go to the hospital. We're at least able to charge to recoup a little bit for our time and materials that we used. And insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, they will pay that. And then so we have a dispatch fee of $95 that we instituted about 8 or 9 years ago, and in talking to several services, they recommended keeping that on there because a lot of insurance companies will pay that.
When was the last time we increased our base rate?
I want to say it was 8 years ago.
8?
Probably one of the last times the Citizens Rate and Fee Advisory Committee actually met.
So
because that's a, what, 40% increase over what we're talking about now?
It is, but it isn't, because if you look at a sampling of our bills are a lot more than that, but it's raising our base rate and doing away with all those itemized costs, which if you took the base rate and itemized costs, that's probably more close to an average. So it just
But we're
flattens
more
the
apt to
line.
get paid by private carriers.
Exactly.
The higher base rate.
And this is, in talking to billing contractors and other agencies, this has became the majority norm for how folks are billing now. IMSA's been doing it this way for 10 plus years.
So how does $1,300 compare to the area as far as what the base rates are?
It's about, IMSA's like 14, I believe. Broken Arrow, without having all my
If you do as
notes.
good a job as IMSA,
I would like to think
well,
we do
then why the
better.
hell would we charge less? Why not at least?
We can do whatever
I'm
this.
serious. Why, if you're gonna go for it, why are we cutting the bread in
The
half?
professionals and the billing providers that do this every day, and I don't have all my figures in front of me, but they recommended basing it on a percentage above what Medicare pays. And that's kind of where we came up with the 13. I've got a spreadsheet on it, I just don't have it up here, but that's
Well,
kind
you
of the
know more about
number.
this than I do. I'm just asking why we're not.
We originally started,
we
we
get
started
to
at
do it.
1,500, and they're like, that's probably a little high for the market.
Yeah, it's almost double where it's at.
Yeah, IMSA is 14, they're in the whole metro. 13, and looking at what we actually collect, still should result in better collection of our fees than what we're getting now. And that's by no means is that finalized, that still has to come before you guys to be approved anyway.
But we can
so.
sure make your bill $1,500.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, I'm gonna let them put you in there.
Our current contractor, the company is actually now known as Digitech. When we first started, it was Intermedics back in 2007. It's changed hands. I've lost count the number of times the company's changed hands and been bought and sold just in my 10 years here. Our service has just, as they've gotten bigger and been bought out by bigger corporations, the service has continued to go downhill, not only for our side of service, but also on the patients when they call in to take care of billing issues.
So you think we can move that and maybe get a better collection ratio?
It's coming up. We've been talking about getting away from them for several years now, but like I said, we were stuck in a multi-year contract with them that expires the end of this September. Our current fee with them is 10.5% of what they collect. 7.5% of that is for billing. The other 3% is for their proprietary patient care report software and the laptops that they provide to do those reports on. Nice thing about that, they do take care of all the hardware issues. If they break or have service issues, we send them back in, they send us a loaner. So that's one cost we would have to assume by getting away from them. But I can tell you their software is very cantankerous, and our guys are frequently on the phone with their support folks trying to iron out why this report's locked up, why it's hung up, why they can't finish it.
Time's money in that.
It is. And the other issue, as I mentioned with customer service, the complaints from patients dealing with this company have just gone through the roof in the last few years. Can't understand who they're talking to. They're no help. They're rude. You know, the list goes on. And when we went with Intermedics back in '07, there were quite a few departments in Oklahoma that were with them. That number has rapidly declined in the last few years. In searching around, talking to several departments, EMSMC, which is EMS Management and Consultants, they're based out of Louisville, North Carolina. They've been doing nothing but EMS billing for 25 plus years. Two of their Oklahoma clients of note are Broken Arrow and Coweta, both of who used to be with Intermedics or Digitech that we're with now. They switched, Coweta just switched last year. Broken Arrow has been with them about 3 years now. Broken Arrow has noted a 25% plus increase in their revenues since switching. Just in our dealings and talking to them, they've been very user-friendly with us, showing us how their software works, walking us through it, letting our guys double up a call and run it on their system versus the system we're using now, and the guys beyond light years better. So much more user-friendly. In talking to other departments, not only Broken Arrow and Coweta, but across the country that have switched to them, they've been very happy. They have gobbled up former Intermedics Digitech customers by the handfuls.
The rate's a lot lower too.
Their rate is lower, yes. They've proposed a 6% management fee, which is lower than what we're paying now by a lot. Kim's staff and my staff would have full access to look at their different portals, to look at their financial analysis and data. We did shop around, and I'll show that on our next slide, and this is kind of who we came back to just based on the demos we did and the customers we talked to. What we are looking at, and I'll explain why, our contract with Intermedics Digitech does end at the end of September, but for us, switching in the middle of a calendar year would be a nightmare that we don't want to tackle. Being with two different companies in the middle of a year would be hard. So what we're proposing is staying month to month with Digitech through the end of the calendar year, December 31st, and looking at trying to make a move to the new provider January 1 of 22.
I noticed there's a significant software cost, but what does that break down to on our percentage that we're paying with this other group?
So it's two separate vendors at this point. Right now, we're stuck using the proprietary software that Digitech has called Triptychs. With the new vendor, we would basically go to a vendor-neutral reporting software that we could use with just about any billing provider out there. So say in the future, we go with EMSMC, and in 3 years, we decide we don't like them, we want to go to somebody else. We can keep using the same software we've been using and not have to worry about changing. It's also much more communication friendly with our state reporting that we have to do. We've had a lot of glitches with the current software not making the reports to the state health department like it's supposed to, and we're having to go back in and fix it. Our ballpark costs, based on talking to ESO, which would be our software vendor, is about $45,000 based on the number of runs and billing rate. And
So
that,
where does that 3% put the number that the other companies?
I would have to go, but it's still less.
I bet you it's more than 45.
It's still
right?
less. So
I mean, it'd be more. The 3% is probably more than the 45 grand.
the 45, Brian, is actually the
Less.
billing cost.
Right.
That's not the software. That is the EMS MC cost. 11,000 per year is roughly what the software costs.
Okay.
And one thing that actually came out literally last week is our fire reporting record management system that we use was just bought by ESO. Right now, we're doing 2 separate reports. Every ambulance call, we have to do 2 different reports. One on the fire side to record the run number and give us an incident number, and then we have to do the patient care report. In the next year or 2, as these 2 companies merge together, we'll have 1 report. And it will streamline a lot of stuff, make our life a lot easier. But based on our run numbers, we're looking at the $11,000 a year roughly. The hardware I spoke of with the laptops, you can do it on any computerized device because the reports are all in the cloud. You can do it on a phone, you can do it on an iPad, you can do it on a computer. So it will make us being stuck with using their laptop and their proprietary
no
software.
more.
It goes out the window. So if we don't have internet, guy can get on his phone and finish the report if he has to.
So for the retreat, it might be helpful to have a spreadsheet. Here's our current cost in total. And then if
Exactly.
we go to this other, here's what we project our costs, so it makes it easy for them to compare the two
Yeah, it sounded
For-
like it's
for
a
the-
better deal anyway.
for the workshop.
Kim will probably echo, trying to get our actual costs from our current vendor has been nightmarish because they randomly just changed how, used to be they sent us everything they collected and then we paid them a monthly bill. Now, other than paper checks written to the city that they can't cash, if it's a credit card payment or an automatic draft from an insurance company, Medicare, Medicaid, they just keep it and deduct it. So a lot of times we have a negative monthly bill because they've already collected a lot of the charges. The only thing they send us to physically deposit are the paper checks made out to the city of Guthrie. So it's going to be hard to go back and truly pull what we've owed them in the last couple of years. And they never told us they were doing this. We found out when we had a budget surplus at the end of the year, why were our payments to this company 5% of what they were budgeted to be? So we had to go back, oh yeah, we changed that. They never told us, so.
But the best we can get
Yes.
would be good, handy.
But we'll work on it and try to get some.
Well, it sounds like a shell game, and on this other deal, it doesn't sound like it's going to be near as difficult to track.
Yeah, and that's, some of the same problems we're experiencing are the same problems these other agencies that have switched providers have had. And we used to do this in-house up until '07, or actually '04, '05. There are very few cities or agencies that still do this in-house. EMSA does their own, but they have an entire department, and that's all they do is billing and coding. It's hard to keep up with the Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance updates and everything. So some of the other vendors we reached out to, one of them is here in Oklahoma, Mediclaims, based out of Tonkwall. They have pretty good reviews. They're not huge. Their rate was a little bit lower, but most of the services using them are very small, don't have near the call volume we have. Coweta's one that used them for years. They just switched away because they just weren't getting the level of service they thought they should have got, and their revenue has subsequently gone up since switching. They also force you to use Image Trend, which is also they're a billing provider and a software provider. Mediclaims makes you use Image Trend, and it's not a very user-friendly software. Another company was Quick Medclaims, 6%, just like what EMS MC's proposed. The 2 Oklahoma clients they have that we talked to, they were good reviews, but we weren't able to get a whole lot from their sales reps. They just kind of threw out a number, yeah, that's probably what it'd be. Just not a lot of good information that we were able to garner from them. And then Image Trend, they have no billing references in Oklahoma whatsoever. They do provide software, including to the state health department, but they proposed a 6% fee, but we weren't able to really talk to any local references that we would trust as far as getting a good or bad review from them. And I mentioned Broken Arrow, and I know they're on the other side of the state, but they are by far the largest fire-based EMS provider in the state. Other than EMSA, they're one of the largest ambulance providers in the state of Oklahoma, and they have a whole EMS division, and they're great to work with as far as being able to provide data and information. So being able to lean on them for recommendations is pretty huge. And they were one of the first fire departments to take over the ambulance back in the 70s when the law allowed it, and they took it from the funeral home. So they've been doing this just about as long as we have. One other thing I wanted to bring up is our rural and local fire billing rate structure. We don't send a lot of bills out just because it's not an easy process to do. Kim's office does it, and we have to compile the data and send it. It doesn't work all that well, and I don't think our collection rate is all that great. We just don't have the knowledge on billing these insurance companies like some of these private billing folks have.
Yeah, that's all they do.
You got to know how to play their game to be able to get the money from them, and it's an ever-changing industry. Something that has really picked up in Oklahoma in the last several years is fire billing for car wrecks, fires outside of city limits. Cities don't typically bill for fire runs on houses within the city limits because those folks are local taxpayers. Car wrecks on the interstate, car fires on folks passing through is typically what folks bill on. Most of your insurance policies, especially your homeowner's policy, you're paying for it. And it's up to you getting with that insurance company and getting them to pay the bill, or they're just going to eat that money and keep it. So there's a lot larger group of fire departments getting, just like with EMS billing, they get a fire billing contractor. Fire Recovery USA, Lawton, Durant are two of the larger ones that we've spoken with. They use Fire Recovery USA. They also do EMS billing, but they didn't have any users in Oklahoma that we could reach out to. But on the fire side, Lawton and Durant went to them a few years ago. And basically what you do, much like on the EMS side, the vendor has access to your record system. They log in and pull all the billing for you. They pull it all, they send it out, they go after the insurance company, they do all the collection stuff. They keep a chunk of money for their fee, they send you the rest. So we collect the data on the scene, pass it along to them, and then they do the billing. I mean, it's more than what we're getting now. Yes, we pay them a fee just like we would on the EMS side, but we would be
Getting nothing
money,
now,
It's
pretty
money
much.
we're not getting. I mean, we get very little on fire billing,
What do they call that, unrealized income?
pretty much. But one of the things that they recommend, and talking to the chief in Lawton, was one thing they had to do was, we haven't updated our rural fire billing rates in several years. We cleaned up a little bit of language a few years ago, but as far as our hourly rates, they haven't changed. They do have proposed numbers, and they recommend a 1.5% consumer price index fee increase annually. That's what they recommend to their customers. By no means do we have to do that. But if this is something that we decide we want to look at, we could work with the attorney and prepare a draft ordinance later to look at adjusting those rates. I'll go back again and say, most of your insurance policies, if you dig down in the fine print and look, you're already paying for this. Whether you use it or not, you're paying for it. And if we don't bill it and collect it, that's just more money the insurance company's getting to keep. So anything we can do to help recoup some of the costs that we incur on going on these emergencies would be, as Brian said, unrealized income. And that's pretty much it. We're about out of time, so answer any questions you guys have. It's a lot of information, but we had an open date to get this in here prior to the retreat.
Questions by the council? So are you looking for any motions here?
I don't think so. I think we're just looking to provide information in preparation for.
What we would like is, to put it calmly, is for you all to put your big boy pants on and come to the retreat to make decisions.
Okay,
We're gonna have lunch?
I think we can do that.
We'll feed you lunch if you make enough decisions by lunchtime.
I will say the
Chris gets
EMS
lunch,
stuff,
too.
we will need to try to get in place, to have enough lead time to prepare for the switch. So we'll need to get that done either right after the retreat or right there fairly quick.
We didn't feel comfortable asking you to make decisions on the first presentation. So our thought process is, all these things will come to the retreat in a summary format where you can make some collective decisions rather than one at a time on some of these signs.
Okay.
You may have to base your savings on the realized increase in revenue that these other communities are seeing.
Yeah. Between Kim and I think we can, as far as a comparison with our current billing provider and proposed, I think we'll be able to come up with something that's at least realistic.
All right. Well,
Appreciate it.
excellent presentation and good effort with ODOT engineer on
We will-
on the safety stuff, keeping them.
I think we're all on a
informed.
first name basis with him now. He's definitely attentive to some of the
Good
needs around
relationship
here,
to
so
build. Good relationship to build.
hopefully it'll
Okay.
pay off.
Chief,
Thank you.
great job.
Further
4
ado.
is update. Leroy, you got a couple, 3 minutes, I think.
We don't have anything else to present tonight.
All right, man, we're adjourned. We got 5 minutes. We'll be back for city council or for the work, I'm sorry, public works.
Snack.
stand. Join me in the pledge to our flag and country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Remain standing for our prayer, please.
Let's pray. Holy God, as the city council gathers here, we thank you for calling us together for this meeting. This is our privilege and our responsibility to support, foster, and advance the mission of the city of Guthrie, Oklahoma. We depend upon you to guide it and will bring it to fulfillment. Enable us to draw upon the wisdom and experience of yesterday as we respond to the questions and concerns of tomorrow. Give us freedom to speak the truth boldly and with kindness. Give us patience to listen openly without prejudice. Give us confidence to discover and explore new possibilities. And give us wisdom to discern what is right and good and just, and the courage to do it. All glory, honor, and praise are yours, holy God, for all ages. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Open our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting of July 6th. Second item on the agenda is public comments, community announcements, recognitions. We've got a couple requests for announcements. Mr. Braggs. You weren't speaking on a specific agenda item, I don't believe, right? It's not a specific agenda item.
No. I was just invited to come
You have,
down.
identify yourself, please, your
Okay.
address. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Harvey Braggs. I live at 617 East Valley in Guthrie, Oklahoma. I'm a lifelong resident of Guthrie. I just have some recommendations. I would like the city council and the mayor to consider the fireworks permit, the dates. From reading one of the handouts that comes into the water bill, on 4th of July, you're only allowed to shoot fireworks to 11 o'clock, but during New Year's Eve, the hours are up to 12:30, so I would like a recommendation possibly to have that increased to that time, somewhere in that hour from 12 to 12:30. Also, I'd like to extend the date of the fireworks sales. From my understanding, you start selling fireworks in Guthrie, the city limits, around June the 16th. I would like that increased possibly to around the 4th or thereafter. My reason is, I mean, if you're allowed to sell fireworks, why can't they be discharged? You know, it's kind of like giving a person a permit to carry a gun, but you don't give them bullets to use it. Okay. Also,
It's an interesting analogy.
so these are, and also when I bought my permit to be able to discharge fireworks on July the 2nd, which was a Friday, I wasn't aware that that day wasn't covered during the permit time. It was from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. My grandkids would have loved to have been able to shoot them on the 2nd, the Friday, rather than the 5th, which I don't have a problem with the 5th, but I think closer to the 4th, that weekend, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, should be allowed. You may want to increase the price of the permit, but I think residents would much enjoy a longer time being able to shoot their fireworks, discharging rather, in the city limits and be within the law than, you know, shooting them without permits or after the hours if you extend those hours for the permits and the times. Okay, that's it.
That's it?
Yes.
Mr. Braggs? Any questions of Mr. Braggs from the council? Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Chief, you would like to make a few comments? Is it appropriate right now?
As you guys know, we hosted the Oklahoma State Firefighters Convention here a few weeks ago in Guthrie. I just wrapped up my term serving as president of that association. And as such, we had about 300 to 400 firefighters and other family and folks here in town for part of that week. The city was a great help in that, allowing myself and our personnel the time to help get stuff set up and help with the various events that we had. And by doing so, I have a little gift to each one of you just to commemorate the event, a little bit of a keepsake. So if you would allow me, Mayor, I'll hand those out right quick.
Absolutely.
And last but not least, one of you up there was a huge help for this event in preparing several pounds of barbecue brisket for our picnic that we had on Thursday night. And I've got a little bit of extra gift for him from our staff to him for his help in that. But I also want to extend a special thanks to you, Mayor, and Vice Mayor Case. Each one of them presented a welcome address both to the retirees convention on Tuesday that week and also our regular state firefighters convention on Thursday that week. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to come do that. But if you'll allow me, I'll present those gifts.
Pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief.
And what these are, guys, this is every year convention, those of you who know the military or around know what challenge coins are. And every year convention, we do a challenge coin to commemorate the event. This one has our State Firefighters Association logo on one side, and on the other side, it has our convention logo for the year.
You don't get one, Jeff?
Jim got his.
Oh, there you go.
So-
Nice.
Neat coin.
And these are in a little special presentation case, so if you have a desk or a shelf, you can display them. And then for Councilman Channel, we got a little special gift. Something I know he's wanted for a long time, and if you'll notice, even in his colors. And I'll tell you, the guy that makes our fronts for us, he goes, "What color do you want?" I was like, "It's kind of a lime green yellow." I was like, "Hang on, I'll send you a picture." So I sent him a picture of your records. And he took one of theirs. Don, we appreciate it.
You bet.
Huge help.
I gotta wear it all evening.
My guy said you guys start wearing it on car rides. There's a ratchet.
That and the chest on in the truck.
But I appreciate the city's support. I'm finishing up my year as past president, and I'll be done with that board. But the city as a whole was a huge help throughout that event, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to bring it here. Had great reviews. Folks loved the businesses and had a great time when they were here. So we appreciate all these.
Good.
Good job, Eric.
Yeah. Item number 3, consent agenda. Agenda A and B is A is the approval of the Special Works Authority workshop meeting of June 15th, and B is the approval of the minutes of the Public Works Authority meeting of June 15th. I'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
And a second? A motion and a second. Any questions? Submit your votes. See the votes. Unanimous approval of the consent agenda items A and B. Item number 4, discussion possible action to approve accepting a grant from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for the amount of $100,555. Tenny, Leroy?
Back on May 4th, City Council adopted Resolution 2021-10 authorizing staff to apply for this grant. And so tonight, what you're doing is accepting the grant. We can go over or answer any questions you have, but it's a follow-up to the resolution that you authorized us to submit the grant, and now we're just accepting it.
Motion moved. Second.
And this is a matching, there's a 50,000.
They are paying 65% of the cost, and we're paying 35%. It gives us the engineering to plan the work. The next phase would be when we have funding in place to apply for a grant to actually do the construction. But this gets us started to the point that we'll have the engineering work done so that when we want to pursue the construction grant, we're ready to do that. Then us pay 100%, we're getting 65% of it paid for by OWRB.
No brainer. I'm sorry, so who had the motion?
Brian, that's it.
Brian, second. Okay, any other discussion? Submit your votes. See the votes. Unanimous approval to accept $100,000 plus. That being the last item on the agenda, we're adjourned. And I open our city council meeting of July 6th. Second item on the agenda, consent agenda items A, B, and C. A is the approval of the minutes of special city council workshop of June 15th. B is the approval of the minutes of the city council meeting of June 15th. And C is the approval accepting a donation of a 2009 International with a bucket lift from OG&E.
Nice.
So
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion. Who's the second? I'm sorry. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Submit your votes. See the votes. Unanimous approval of the 3 consent agenda items. I'd like to stop there, and we've got the acceptance of this international, which from OG&E, which is pretty significant. Tenny, you want to talk a little bit about how this came about?
Sure, I'd like
What
to
it does
just,
for
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd just like to recognize Spencer Brown. He's with OG&E, he's our community affairs manager. It's been a pleasure working with Spencer through this process and several other projects that we've got going on in town, working with Spencer. Spencer, would you like to say a few things?
If you give us the truck, you get to make comments.
Well, I second what Tenny says. It's been a pleasure working with Tenny and Leroy. You know, I accepted this position a month before everything shut down, so it's good to see you guys in person now. I've been watching your Facebook stream, but no, it's awesome. You know, they brought it to my attention earlier on, said, hey, we've been looking into trying to get a truck, and we kind of ran into some obstacles, but we were pretty persistent, and here we are today, and you guys will have a bucket truck that'll hopefully help out the city. And so I'm happy to be your community affairs manager, and I just look forward to working with all of you.
Spencer, welcome. I was going to say, welcome to Team Guthrie, Spencer.
I need to make him my friend.
Okay, item number 3, discussion and action to approve awarding a bid number 2021-5, demolition and site clearance of a number of buildings.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm just going to start with the list off of the cover letter here. 624 East Grant. There's been no progress made. There's no permits pulled on this. 916 West Logan is actually from 2020, Resolution 2020-02. No progress on this one either. 1102 West Manser is no progress on it. And then 1111 West Noble. This one was also from 2020. We don't have it, well, there's a little progress on this one, but there's no permits pulled.
Wasn't that the one where she was gonna go in and rebuild the whole inside?
The guy was working on it last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these are the pictures from last year's meeting,
Right.
and these are from, July 1st.
And when you're stating that either there's no permits or there's been no action taken, these are the reasons that these are being demolished, or the proposal is coming to us.
Yes.
To approve the demolition.
Yeah, this has been well over a
They've been
year.
given time.
Yeah.
I've seen cars there this week, a pickup and a car.
Yeah, that guy's been working on that all week. I've seen him up there on an extension ladder. I saw him Saturday and Sunday, both.
Well, but it's
So, but
slotted
he just
in
comes
this.
in, he told us that he just comes in and he'll work like a week. He'll just stay here and work on it a week, and then he goes back home and goes back to work again at his job. This is where he wants to retire to. So if you think he's done a better job than these other guys, I'm willing to leave him alone for now, since he's actually working on it.
Like 20 years old.
But is he
Yeah, that's-
filing permits? If he's not filing permits, if he's not filing.
Well, if all he's doing is working on siding and stuff, what's the permit? If there's not a skilled trade involved, there's not one.
Yeah, but if he's not communicating with the city,
But
When he
Bill,
knows he's
Bill,
in
what's
this
the permit?
process.
What's the permit? That he
At the
wouldn't-
meeting last year, he was told that he needed to get with the building department and pull permits for whatever work needed to be done. The picture there is in February of 2020. it's still not a habitable structure. There's no water, there's no electric. This is all that's happened in a year, a little over a year. So, and that's right there on Noble, right across from,
I can't tell what's happened. That's not even the same side of the house. Right?
well, that's the back of the house, and then this is the front of the house.
Right. So the back
So
still
part of
looks
the
like
back's
that?
been torn off, and as far as I know, that's all that's been happened.
Yeah.
I remember last year it was covered in blue tarps because the roof was gone, and the roof's been taken care of now. And some of the front facades have been taken care of now. I don't know, man, he's actively working on it. I hate to do anything on that. I mean, I'd maybe do something, but not tear it down. Maybe fine him, write him a ticket, you know, bust his chops a little bit, but I don't want to, on that one, I disagree, Bill. That's it. It's the only one I disagree with.
If you disagree, you could always make a motion to pull it off the list.
I don't think we want to pull it off the list.
Well, the
But then it's going
demolition
down.
list.
The demolition list,
Correct.
yes,
Yes.
I'd like to make that motion. That we pull it off, since he's actively working on it.
It's been there for a year now. He's had little to no progress for a year. I guess we can start citing him daily in hopes that that gets enough incentive.
Have we cited him? What have we done?
We've tried to get with him to get,
Everything but cited.
to get progress, but we're a year in and he's had little to no progress.
You know, I think when all
And
these...
it's on one of our main view
The year end, you
corridors
need to
of
be done
Noble.
with the project.
Yeah.
You know, when all of these come up, the key word is substantial progress. It's always,
I understand.
always emphasize that.
I understand.
So is that substantial progress in a year?
No, that should be done in a year.
I just think we're in a slippery slope if we say, okay, you know, if you make a few, put up some siding the last 2 weeks of, before it goes to council. I just think that's a slippery slope.
Does he know it's coming back to council?
It did not, well, so last year when it was declared dangerous and dilapidated, it didn't make our list, number one, because of the money, the funding, and number two, he was actively working on it. And I hadn't seen any progress in it in a long time, and so when we came up to put the bids together this year, which we've had a lot of progress on our list that was declared dangerous and dilapidated this year, that one's still sitting there, and I hadn't seen any progress on it and haven't heard from him. So as far as I know, there's no plans to put water in the house. There's no plans to put electric in the house. Does he plan on it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I see where he's done demo, but what kind of construction's he done? I mean,
Well, he hasn't had any permits, so
you
there's
don't know
no,
if he's done anything
if he's
special.
done foundation, it was without permits. I don't
did
see any
foundation work?
I don't see any foundation work.
Okay.
All he's done is taken off the back of the house and put up some plywood and some tarps.
Well, I just think that, I think we make it pretty clear that there needs to be progress. And I think the other thing that we make pretty clear, maybe we need to emphasize it even more, is that the owner needs to have significant communication with our office.
I don't believe I've seen this guy since our
I
meeting
mean, that's
last
his
year.
responsibility.
It is.
You know, it's unfortunate if he started to show some interest, but
I remember him coming in here and to our meeting.
I remember
And
too.
We originally looked at this, and that's been a year ago.
I would just think in a year, if someone was gonna redo something, it would be done. A year's a long time, okay, to leave a dilapidated structure in that state.
I mean, to pull no permits for.
That's what I'm saying, they've done nothing, as far as I'm concerned.
My thought is that he probably should have hired somebody locally to take care of it, so he could get it taken care of.
Here's my
He
thought.
can't be here.
He doesn't have the means to do it, so.
He doesn't?
continue- That's my thought. I mean, otherwise, why isn't it done? That's why we
Well,
continue
to
to look
contract
at it.
somebody else to do it, okay.
Go ahead.
All right, here's 1501 West Noble. I did just notice that this has changed ownership since it was declared dangerous and dilapidated, so it's possible that that owner has plans to tear it down themselves, but it's still on our list because there's no permits pulled on this one.
I believe they do have a plan for that one.
And it may come. So this might get pulled off the list, and if someone's gonna take responsibility for it, we're gonna let them, and we'll use that money somewhere else.
And maybe that's what that guy needs to do, is take responsibility for it, because otherwise it's
Well,
gonna be.
how long before demolition will begin? And what do you do between now and then but to notify the owner?
So tonight, it would be the awarding the bids to the contractors that were the lowest bidders on these houses. Between now and signing contracts would be the time allotted before something to change, which it possibly could.
But you'll contact the homeowners in the meantime before signing the contracts, or no? They have to watch this to find out
Yes, we will notify the property owners.
prior to.
Yes.
Those property
to-
owners I know are gone for a month,
Okay,
so I'd be good with holding them back because we don't want to put our money into it if they have a plan for it.
that's right.
And I'm pretty sure something's gonna happen with that.
Okay.
Because we went to the problem of buying it, so that one we probably should hold back because I know there's a plan in the works.
Well, you probably got a contact number for the new owners, right?
Yes.
So maybe a phone call is warranted, right? Just to say, we can do it.
When's our next planned demo? If we have other houses that are on our list, what's our next planned demo?
Like I said, I'd say about 2 weeks before we're signing contracts with the companies.
Okay,
If
no,
they're
I mean,
awarded.
before you give us another list like this, when's it gonna be?
Oh, it'd be next year's.
Okay, you're not gonna.
Unless for some reason I end up with a bunch of money this
I know
year.
that sometimes we have them to come in and correct the problems and we don't end up turning them out, so we use that money and do it again.
Yeah, we're fixing to see some of those from from the list this year that have been completely taken care of. 506 East Lincoln, no progress on this one. 919 East Grant, there's no progress on this one and there's no permits, but this owner actually contacted me today and said he was entering into a contract with one of the contractors that bid it. So it's possible this one doesn't get awarded during the contract because they contracted them.
Which is good news for us.
In this instance, it's actually the same company that had the lowest bid. 1007 East Vilas, no progress on this one. No permits pulled. This is 610 South Capitol. The property owner has torn off the back of the house, has building permits, has repaired the foundation under the house and gotten inspections. 701 South Capitol has a contract, and so that's why it's not on our list for bids this year. 702 East Grant, the owners removed this structure from the property, and they're in the process of getting their building plans in to build a new structure on this lot. 806 East Warner, that structure was removed, footings and all, and this is the new house that's partially built. 1218 West Noble, the property owner removed the blight off of the front of the house, painted the house, and it's actually under contract with a local company that remodels houses.
Well, good. So progress is being made on some of these.
1407 East Vilas, the property owner on this one's under contract and has a demo permit to remove that himself. And 1502 West Cleveland is not declared dangerous and dilapidated anymore. It was removed, but this is a progress picture from where they've got the demo part of it done and they're in the process of reframing.
So on,
Hey, can you flip back to the Noble one for a minute?
Big two-story?
Yeah, that one. What is that, 1501?
So on that one, because we know there's new owners and we understand their intent is to tear it down themselves, what you could do is go ahead and authorize and award the bid, and we just won't issue the notice to proceed or sign the contract on that one until we have a chance to talk to the new owners. Then if they're going to tear it down and pull a permit, we won't sign the contract. If they don't, then we would sign the contract that you approved and have it tore down.
Well, if we can get a hold of them, I know they're out of the country.
We'll wait till they get back.
Okay.
That's fine, as long as they're,
Yeah.
I think they'll clear it up.
Yeah, we'll hold that one if you award it tonight until we talk to them.
All right.
And if they will get a demolition permit and move forward, we won't actually issue a start work order on it or sign the contract. If they get back and say, well, we don't have any plans, then we'll go ahead and tear it down.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then to award that bid 2021-05 with the provision as identified for 1501 West Noble.
So moved.
A motion second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes. See the votes. Unanimous approval and to award bid 2021-05 with the provision as identified. Item number 4, discussion possible action to confirm mayor's nomination to the Guthrie Board of Adjustments. A is to confirm the reappointment of Robert Kenworthy for a term through May 31st, 2024. And B is to approve the reappointment of Sue Ducharme for a term through May 31st, 2024. That's in addition to the 2 terms that she's already served on that board.
So I want to talk about that because I happen to know personally some people that are on boards that are told they got to go and they don't have options to renew because their term length is expired.
Well, we just recently introduced the opportunity to extend.
On these, you didn't. This is the only one I've seen the opportunity to extend on.
Well, that's not true. We've extended it at least one time since that.
To who?
Well, I don't remember the specifics, but I know we've been at least one, maybe 2.
Yeah, to
We all
Michael,
voted for this.
To who?
We all voted for this about 3 months ago, 3-4 months ago, Brian.
just to answer your question, that came up with the current chairman of the Board of Adjustment, Michael O'Neill. He had termed out, we did not have qualified applicants, so under the new provisions, he was reappointed even though he had 2 full terms. And so his appointment now is till 2023, because that was last year.
Okay.
And that
So I
was-
know someone on park board that was told you got to relinquish your position because your
Maybe
term's
that
up.
was before
Well, this was here
this,
not long ago.
before we
I don't recall making a, maybe I wasn't here for that meeting. I don't recall.
I would say I don't think we've done a great job of trying to find people. I mean, the person that I had appointed for the rates and fees committee would be more than willing to serve on this board. So I don't think that that we run out of people to serve. It's just we're not seeking them well.
Well, the person that I was appointing for the rates and fee committee, who's actually in this room, is willing to serve as well on that board.
They just have to get their nominations in.
Well, right, but I didn't know that, I thought, and at one point in time, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, Mayor, but at one point in time, we had a situation where you weren't the only one that was going to be appointing these boards, that we were going to have conversation of it and give opportunity for council to be able to give recommendations or bring people forward on some of these boards, and none of that's happened.
Well, that's up to you guys.
Well, I understand, but I think that maybe I didn't know that this particular board was coming due, okay, as you obviously did.
I didn't know it was coming due until I saw it on the agenda.
Exactly, I didn't either.
It's a little too late.
Well,
Just like I didn't realize that the council appoints the vice mayor and not the mayor appoints the vice mayor.
Well, it's in the utility bills. I announce, just a minute.
Okay.
I announce it just about every time at city council
Right.
meetings that we have vacancies in X, Y, and Z, and I have done Board of Adjustments, even though I wasn't here at the last meeting, but before that, I did. And it's on the city website. So there's
There's
you're
areas to
saying
see
you
it.
don't know, how do we expect the public to know?
Well, exactly. That's exactly right.
So we've got some challenges.
Right.
And if you've got somebody that's here that was willing to serve on the Board of Adjustment, they ought to be making their nomination. And James, the same with you.
But again, just like you said, if we don't know as a council, how do you expect the public to know? And so therefore,
Well,
it's a selection that seems
what
to
is
be
your
continued.
solution?
I don't know.
Well, we have
mean,
workshops every freaking meeting. It could be a workshop agenda item, say, hey, we've got these boards, let's talk about who could be potentials. That'd be a great workshop item.
And it would.
I would agree. I didn't know it was coming up. I didn't even know what it was until I saw it on the agenda and started doing research. And then what I could find out about that board, then I asked our city manager and he explained it more in depth. And I also have someone that was interested in serving who was on my choice for the fees, advisory fee. So I don't know, what do we do at this point? Do we table and wait and see if these others want to join? It's also my understanding that actually there's only 3 active board members now on this board, because one moved out of the city or something?
Well, yeah, there's actually one that has been reappointed. His term ends, that's Michael O'Neill, ends in 31st of May in 2023. The 2 of you, or the 2 that were tonight, have expired terms, and then there's 2 vacancies. So actually, there's 4 positions available.
So Robert Kenworthy, however, is going for his 2nd term.
Yes, he could be reappointed, but again, that's again up to obviously the council in that. But yeah, there's 2 expired terms and 2 vacancies.
So I would make a motion that we, on A, we confirm mayor's reappointment of Robert Kenworthy, and on B, we do not waive the restriction of an individual serving more than 2 terms for this board.
Only because
Second.
I was going to make a comment, but I agree with the second. Only because I think that we have ample people that want to be on this board, or are willing to be on this board.
That's yet to be determined.
Exactly. So
Well,
that's
that's
why,
determined.
that's
How long
why
we
if
have
we do it
vacancies?
this way, we'll have more opportunity for them to.
We've had these for 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, 2 of the vacancies were very recently because of resignations and that, so
And one-
probably within the last
And
month.
one
But
moving out of the city.
yeah, and those were fairly recently.
And Sue's appointment expires when?
It expired at the end of May. Yeah, same with
So
Roberts.
There's 2 months there.
Yeah.
Let's table the second part.
We've already got a motion and a second.
You know,
No, to disapprove.
we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
And then what'll
And we're
happen
in
is-
discussion right now.
And then what'll
I
happen-
think to eliminate Sue without knowing that there are other candidates that are actually going to put their submission in is premature. And I
Well, are we voting for Sue, or are we voting for the change in the consecutive term?
The motion was to approve Kenworthy and to not approve the extension of the 3rd term.
At this
for Sue
time,
Sharp.
so we have an opportunity to get other
I
people to
didn't hear
submit
at
their.
this time.
Okay, so, yeah. it's-
Other
it's
people,
not a
for
different
other
Sue
people to
at
get
this
to
point.
submit their applications, and we need to come up with a better format of how we are all informed of what's going on with these boards, instead of just, having to peruse the city website for $1 a year to find out what's vacant.
Okay, you'd be in charge of that.
I'm not gonna be in charge of that.
Would you accept the change in the motion to table B?
No.
Okay. That's your
Okay,
answer.
so
That's your answer
the
then.
motion as it stands is what?
Is to approve Kenworthy, A, and to disapprove the extension for a 3rd term of Sue DeShawn.
No.
No,
It was
it's
to
to waive
waive
the
the
restriction.
To waive the restriction
Serving more than 2 terms.
for that
Yeah,
office.
I don't agree that
Has
we
nothing
waive
to do with
anybody's
Sue. That's
restrictions.
what I was trying to get to.
Pardon?
It has nothing to do with
Nothing to do with Sue.
It has to do with the term, waiving the term.
Correct.
Because we got other people, we're not waiving these terms. I got a neighbor that was told to get off the board. And he's the only one that shows up to these meetings half the time. And he was told, you gotta go. As soon as we find a replacement, you're out. And that's on the Parks Board, really.
So a motion to approve A and to not waive B
Correct.
is the motion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
One point of clarification, not relative to the motion, but just some history. We did experience, on some boards, we had good people. We didn't really have ample applicants at the time, but our resolution didn't give us any options. It was point blank, 2 terms, you're off.
Right.
So back in October of 2020, we amended that resolution to give the council the authority to waive the requirement to give us more flexibility. So some of those people that we addressed prior to that, we were following our resolution because we had not given ourselves the authority to waive that restriction until October of last year. So that, just to give
Yeah,
you
no,
some
I
history.
understand. And so wouldn't you think that, so how do we pick and choose who we're going to waive it on?
That's your all's decision. That's your all's option.
The option's still available,
That's
what
our,
he's saying.
that's our option.
As long as we've got 3 people sitting here saying, I got somebody, and I got somebody, there's no need to waive it.
We don't have applications, Don.
Because we haven't had an
We
opportunity.
don't have applications.
They do.
You have applications.
But you will tomorrow, right, Don?
And so, if I'm understanding then, if we waive the possibility, what was your verdict?
My motion was to not waive the
Not waive.
restriction of the individual serving more than 2 consecutive terms.
So does that mean that if Sue's name comes up in the future, it will not be?
It's not
waived?
attached to her name.
This is a
It's attached
particular
to
instance.
this particular
In this
issue.
particular instance, for this particular board, at this particular time, we're not gonna waive it, is what this is saying. We still have the option to waive this in the future. We can turn around and do the same thing we're doing tonight, next time we meet.
Correct.
We could turn around and vote just exactly the opposite of what we're doing right now. We're leaving all the options still on the table. We're just not gonna waive it tonight.
gonna vote.
That's all we're saying. Am I
Yeah.
correct? Is anybody?
You're
That is
correct.
Okay.
And if I could clarify, my comments weren't for or against the motion. I was just
I understand.
providing some history.
Right, right.
I got it.
Now, can we have a workshop item?
Yeah, that's
I
what
want
needs to
boards
happen.
and I want vacancies, and let's discuss.
I agree.
Or a list.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Submit your votes.
All votes, right?
See the votes. Unanimous approval then of Mr. Kenworthy and to not, I'm not sure, I'm not going to
Not
get that
waive
right.
the restriction.
Do not waive the restriction for item B. Okay, item number 5, city manager report.
I have nothing additional.
Okay. Item number 6, council members' comments. Vice Mayor Case.
I missed the fireworks. I hope it was great. From what I've heard, it was. I don't know if the rain got you guys or not. I was golfing. I actually got to take a little bit of time off after filling in for the retired mayor who was on vacation. So,
Retired mayor.
Yeah, the retired mayor on vacation.
I caught that. I caught that.
But anyway, it's been really pleasant lately. The weather's been awesome, and I hope it continues. That's all I have.
Councilman Long.
No, I want to thank Calvin for a phenomenal fireworks show. He was able to get it done, and the skies opened out right after. So
Cool.
there were people here for Red Brick Nights that lived hours away and came just for the show. I made sure to make the rounds to thank everybody for sticking through the weather and finding out where they're from. And there were so many people here that don't live here, and so that was really cool to see. And so I appreciate everything Calvin did to make sure that the show
Glad it went well.
Councilman Taylor.
was good.
Eric, thank you. You did a great job tonight. I appreciate, your hard work on that. Yeah, it is. And staff, thank you. I know a lot of you guys have been working overtime trying to get things figured out. So that's it.
Councilman Williams.
This weekend, I drove down through Cottonwood Flats and didn't count them, but there were numerous trailers down there. Numerous.
Yeah.
It was quite phenomenal. It speaks a lot about the Little Britches Rodeo thing going on. And in speaking with Leroy, I understand that you guys got one out there ahead of time and sucked up water puddles and everything else. to make sure it was dry. And I can comment, I didn't see a lot of rutted up stuff. I was surprised, and then I learned what you did, so thank you. You and the other guys that did that, took care of that. It was a great effort.
Councilman Channel?
I guess about the only thing I have is, does anybody know where you can buy a siren?
Yeah.
Thanks to all the guys. We had fun doing it. I hope they enjoyed it.
That hat's actually to put coleslaw in.
That's a different deal.
That's the inside joke there. Councilman Mothra.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Eric, too. You did a good job, Eric. Thanks for the coin. I appreciate that. And thanks to everybody else. That's what I got tonight.
Okay. Well, we've got Little Britches in town. Lots of, what are they, is it 2,600, something like that, 2,700 horses. And with each horse, obviously, comes a rider and parents and grandparents and family. And so lots of Little Britches folks out here from Lazy through Sunday, I believe, Saturday or Sunday. We welcome them. And again, Red Brick Nights. First time I've ever watched fireworks with windshield wipers going in my truck. But I tell you what, it was great even with that. It was great even with that. Super job by all, and persevering through some challenging weather. We do have vacancies. Park, the Board of Adjustments that we just talked about, Airport, Historic Preservation. We're either have or are anticipating vacancies in those boards and commissions. So if you've got an interest, want to come and join in a more direct way, Team Guthrie, to all the members that are watching out there in TV land, it's a good opportunity. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thank you.
We're not adjourned.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, we're not. Sorry, item 7, consider approval to reconvene into executive session for purposes of talking about the police and firefighters contracts. You have a motion?
Second.
Give me the motion. Motion.
Chris.
In a second. Submit your
Your
votes.
job is to make sure
Submit
that's
your votes.
still there when they come back out.
Absolutely. See the votes.
I'm kind of on the table.
Yeah, you stay here.
On the fence.
You stay here. Semi-unanimous approval to move into executive session.